non-threatening, inform, educate the voters here, and District 5 candidates. Pleased to have these people here. I know running for office defies words. I know Don has done it, Monica's doing it, others have run for office, and I think we all have a lot of admiration and respect for those who throw their hat into the political arena to do it. I don't think I would want to do it myself, but so I admire the fact that we have Rob Brown and Philip Reimers here who are running for office. I'd also like to thank the co-sponsors of the event here tonight. We have Danielle Matthews, who has done most of the logistics and the legwork. Thank you so much. And she ran another one of these gigs last week for District 1, was it? District 1, and another one for District 5. So the Calpine and the Geysers are really taking the lead in trying to motivate and involve and engage our constituents here in Lake County. Also, the Lake County Chamber of Commerce is here. Melissa Fulton, she's going to be our timer. She's going to explain some things here in a minute. Of course, thanks to the Moore family. Bo Moore is here. Steve Moore, thank you very much for hosting this, providing the venue. And the International Union of Operating Engineers, number 3. Thank you. Your name, sir? Joe. Joe, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Okay, we're also going to have this is being videotaped also by Terry Larson with the Lake County Magazine. And we also thank Keith Gadet of the Lake County City of Lights studios. So I think what I'd like Melissa to do is to explain some of the logistics of the timing, to be formal and so on.
Thank you. And the Chamber is very proud to be a part of this. We believe it's absolutely important that all of the residents be given an opportunity to ask questions and to hear in person how the candidates respond and some of their ideas. The way we handle this is each candidate will get an opening statement of 2 minutes. Then, as the questions are asked, they each get 1 minute to answer the questions, and they will be asked in a rotating manner. And then at the end of our forum, each candidate will have a 2-minute closing comment period. I'm the timer, and which is a really simple job. I will hold up a yellow sheet that has a big 30 on it when there are 30 seconds left for that particular candidate to complete their statement. And then I hold up a big red sign. I think Calpine used an entire cartridge of red ink making the red sign, and that will tell them that their time is up. So it's a pretty simple process, and we really appreciate the fact that we have people who are willing to put themselves on the line to represent all of us in Lake County. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Yeah, so when we come to opening statements, we had all that time to think about it, but we never really decided who was going to go first. So, they're in the order. Yeah. I was going to flip a coin. Okay, so Mr. Reimers will open up with a 2-minute statement on why he wants to run for this office. Thank you, Mr. Reimers. Phil.
Hello, hello. Oh, good. Well, thank you all. Thanks to Calpine, the Chamber of Commerce, the operating engineers, and the Moore family. Thanks to all you folks for coming to listen, and thanks to Rob. We may disagree on a couple things or disagree on how we go about things, but we probably disagree on a whole lot of things at the same time. When I decided to do this a couple of years ago, I wanted to accomplish one big thing. And that one big thing is the lake, and it will transform this county, and it's very doable. But since then, on September 12th, our eyes all got opened up for a different set of circumstances that's going on around us right now. And it opened my eyes up because of my experience working with building departments all over the Bay Area and in the San Joaquin Valley. It's we're losing residents here. I know of 3, and I've heard of as many as 10 that aren't coming back because of red tape. And red tape is a thing that government does, and it has to be streamlined. It needs to be fixed. Another thing where there seems to be a disconnect is the people that go up there. Some of them tell horror stories about what they're running around, and they're already victimized or being victimized again. So if I'm lucky enough to get elected, I'm going to streamline that, and my promise to the folks here, if any are victims and you haven't started the process yet, if I'm elected, I'll go with you through it until we get the thing streamlined so it works really good. So when I go there, I'm going to go there with my eyes open, not to look at things as the way they've been done, but to look at things to see how they can be done better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reimers. Mr. Brown, please.
Thank you all for coming and showing an interest in this very important seat. It's in my opinion, having run for re-election a few times, it's always been important, but never has it been as important as it is right now. In 1976, when I was 16 years old, I was a volunteer firefighter at the Kelseyville High School, and since that time, I've been committed to public service in one form or another. I started coaching Little League Baseball in 1979, and I've coached every year since something. And I've committed my adult life to working for the kids in our community. However, as Phil said earlier, September 12th changed everything for all of us. And while the lake and the roads and law enforcement and all these things are extremely important for us for the survival and success of Lake County, including the economic future of Lake County, nothing, in my opinion, is more important than getting thousands of people back in their homes. And there is a lot of general talk about red tape and streamlining and all that, but what you're going to hear tonight is demonstrative of someone who has provided the leadership that's actually gone through with these folks to make sure that that has been streamlined. It is streamlined. It's never going to be streamlined enough, in my opinion, but is much more streamlined than just a general statement of, I need to do this when I'm elected. It needs to be done now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, there are 6 questions that have been formulated to ask. None of the candidates have any prior knowledge of what these questions are. There's also been about 10 questions collected to ask later. So we're going to give each candidate 1 minute to respond to this question. I'm going to let Jared have the first one. Go ahead, Jared.
Starting with Mr. Brown, please share your thoughts on the importance of the role of supervisor in the Lake County community.
Well, the role of supervisor is extremely important on a good day, but as I stated earlier, it's extremely important now. Developing the relationships and connections that I've been able to develop over the last 16 years as supervisor is proving to be extremely vital as we try to get money from the state, the federal government, and working with other supervisors who may not be as well-informed or included in a lot of the meetings, literally hundreds and probably getting close to the thousands of meetings that we've experienced over the last 8 months. I've been able to go back and articulate successfully to all of my board members, fellow board members, on items that are important to this district and District 1 as well, in order to accomplish the rebuild that's so vital. And I've been successful in that. I've been able to get their support in everything that I've asked for them to do in accomplishing this streamlining that was spoken about earlier. I'll continue to do that. I have a great relationship with Senator McGuire, Assemblymember Dodd.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
That's time.
You're enjoying this way more than you should.
Mr. Reimers, that'll be the same question for you. Please share your thoughts on the importance of the role of supervisor in the Lake County community.
I think supervisors have to devote their time to getting the big things done. You know, the Lake County's been kind of meandering along for quite some time now, and things haven't been changed for the better. And so we need to do that. A supervisor also needs to be a promoter. And probably where me and Rob differ on this thing, and he's a government guy, I'm thankfully not one, not yet, is I don't believe in the, there's a chain of command, and the supervisors deal with the assemblymen and so on up the line, and that's probably the right way to do it. But by golly, with the thing with the Anderson Springs and getting the waiver, attempt to get a waiver so that those people that can build that are sitting right on the creek, I'd go right to the governor. He can do this in just a couple of minutes, and there's only 58 counties. I'm sure he can take a minute to see us.
Thank you, Mr. Reimers. Okay, second question. Board of Supervisors, they oversee many departments, often dealing with employees and matters that quite often have final budget approval of millions of dollars. Could you talk some about your experience with managing people and budgets? And I believe, Mr. Reimers, you have the first one. people and budgets?
Well, I ran a business for a number of years, and at the high end, we had close to 30 people in the field. And so we had, in private enterprise, you better budget your money very well or you're going to go broke. And in dealing with people, for my personal way of thinking is it's so much easier to make somebody's day than wreck somebody's day. So you got to think about their feelings when you're dealing with them. And it helps the morale of everybody, and it'll help everything go smoother.
Hey, Mr. Brown, same question. Talking about managing people and budgets and the complexities of being a supervisor?
Mr. Reimers mentioned earlier that I was a government guy, and I don't think I've ever been accused of that. Even though I'm an elected official, I've been in business for myself since I was 25 years old, self-employed, and so I know what it's like to run a budget. I also know what it's like to be responsible for the last 16 years for a county that is the only county in the state of California that's actually in the black. So while things may be bad in Lake County, under the perception of some, it's actually pretty darn good when it comes to being able to pay our bills and continue with services. Dealing with people, I've always considered myself not as a supervisor, but as someone that's equal with them. And the last 8 months has proven that. I've worked as a team member, working closely with all of our department heads. And in fact, some department heads aren't here any longer because I felt that the community deserved better than that, better response than that, and we expected more out of them, and I don't ask anybody that's on that team to do something that I won't do myself, and for that reason I have not had a day off since the day of the fire, and I won't take a day off until it's done.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Up next, Ms. Brown, this is your question. Homelessness is becoming more of an issue in Lake County every day. What are your thoughts on how the county should address this issue?
We just had this discussion last Tuesday. The issue of homelessness is never going to go away. Homelessness is there's a broad definition of it. I've also been a foster parent for many years, and according to the state definition, even foster parents are counted as homeless in Lake County, which is kind of odd to me. So I don't know how that works. But the issue of homelessness for me right now is secondary to the thousands of people that live up here on this mountain in Anderson Springs and Middletown that literally are homeless. Even though they have a place to live, they are not in their home. And that's what we need to concentrate and focus on right now. As far as building a homeless shelter in Lake County, while that may sound good and may feel good to some people, I guarantee you if we build it, they will come. We have enough problems right here locally to take care of the people that legitimately live here in Lake County. And I'd like to be able to take care of all of them. That's just not possible. And to build a homeless shelter and to pretend that we're going to solve all these problems, it only leads to further problems by bringing homeless from other counties and other surrounding areas.
Thank you. Mr. Reimers, the same question. What are your thoughts on homelessness and how the county can address these issues?
If we absolutely had the answer on how to address this issue, we could sell it to every other county in the country and our problems would be solved. The homelessness is, and Rob's right, it's a broad term. What we have is individuals. Some are there because of drug addiction, some are there because of mental illness, some are there of bad luck, and some just don't want to work. You couldn't round them all up even if you put together a homeless shelter, and I wouldn't be necessarily in favor of that because you're bringing them all together. You can't keep them there. It's going to cost more money. When they come in for services, and many do, that's the time to try and address their issues and see how there's ways where we can either set them up with charities and whatnot to try and get them off the streets. But you can't round them up. I believe it's unconstitutional.
Okay, next question, gentlemen. Talking about tourism here, Kelseyville, Lake County, Cobb Mountain, wherever. What are your thoughts about attracting tourism to the area? And Mr. Reimers, yours first. Yeah. Tourism.
Tourism used to be in Lake County. Tourism should be the backbone of Lake County, and it's not. For example, our neighbors to the west, Napa County, for example, in an average 3-week period of time exceeds Lake County's annual tourism. Lake County has a bad reputation. It started with the lake, and it started some time ago, and that the only way that tourism is going to come back to Lake County is to address that issue. It doesn't need any more studies. It doesn't need any more panels, discussions, or committees. The answer is out there. The solution's been there for 30 years. It's a private company that's been putting these things in for 30 years all over the world. It's expensive. We can get the money. The money's out there. We can transform the lake, and it's a quick process. Transform the lake, we transform the economy, we transform the county.
What are your thoughts about tourism, Mr. Brown?
Well, none of these answers can be answered in one day. It's just not possible. The homeless issue, we can talk about that the entire time. the entire time as well. What we need to do is focus on making things as easy as possible for businesses that want to promote tourism, such as the wine grape industry. Canocti Harbor, we've worked with several buyers on that, trying to make it easy. Whenever somebody says that they're not going to be able to buy Canocti or they're not going to be able to put a vineyard, we want to make sure that it's not because of the county, not because of the government. And we've done everything we can to make that. I don't disagree with Mr. Reimers as far as the lake goes and the importance of that lake, but it is a large natural lake that we have far little control over than he represents. In fact, this company that he's talked about, what he doesn't know is they have never been authorized to put their product in any lake in the state of California. I've spoken with them. We met with them 4 or 5 years ago to try to do this. They are very successful in some of the other lakes, and I can't say it would be bad for Clear Lake, but I can tell you that Fish and Game will not allow it in Clear Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. This next question will be yours as well. As it has been a concern for much small business as well as the community of Kelseyville, what is your position on the Dollar General store in Kelseyville that's now slated for the Clear Lake Riviera?
My position on the dollar store is the same as any business. Every property owner and every developer that wants to come in and apply for a legal business in Lake County should be allowed to do that. They should be given due process and allowed the opportunity to present their case, have the community hear exactly what they have to offer. If it can't happen, if the community is against it, if there are issues that involve health and safety issues, then we have to consider that and either mitigate it or not allow them to do it. But to just say right now that Dollar General will not come in because somebody doesn't like their business model or who their investors are, it's not legal, it's not constitutional, and I would not support that concept. So to say that I will support Dollar General or not support Dollar General is not something that any supervisor should do with a preconceived notion. Otherwise, they should disclose that right up front and disqualify themselves from the discussion as it comes up, because it would deny due process to any developer.
Thank you. The same question for you, Mr. Reimers. What is your position on the Dollar Store General?
We agree on some of this. I don't like the idea of government interfering with private enterprise to the extent that it's possible. If they meet all the provisions and if the community isn't, the community should have the final say. If none of the people want it there, then by golly, it probably shouldn't be there. This is a community of the people. And so that's where I stand on that. But I believe that, we need more business up here, more businesses, more jobs, and we'd have to see about the people in the surrounding area. I'm also a little concerned about the businesses there, and we'd have to see how that works out, where it's even going to be located.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have one more question from our planned questions, and then we'll open up to the questions that have been submitted and vetted. And the last question deals with effective communication. And I will read the lead-in. As a member of the Lake County Board of Supervisors, you're expected to know the concerns of District 5 constituents and where appropriate helping to solve their problems. Okay. What steps would you take in order to effectively and successfully communicate with your constituents? Mr. Reimers.
Oh, well, I'm going to have a couple of town halls here in Kelseyville before June, and I'd be willing to have those often, and also I can communicate via the internet, and I'd like to, if there's a website at the county, there is a website for the supervisors, I'd like to update it weekly on how things are going, and there's going to be things that we may talk about here that as they progress along, I want to keep the citizens informed as to what's going on. It's their government.
Thanks. Mr. Brown, that same question, effectively and successfully communication with your constituents, please.
The best way to tell people what you're going to do is what you have done. And I have done that. I think I've done a good job of communicating with my constituents. And I'm going to tell you right now, not everybody's going to be happy with the answer, because sometimes no is an answer. And I understand that, but I can tell you there's nobody in this audience throughout this entire fire issue that has called me, that I haven't called them back, that I haven't tried to help them through that process. I've given my phone number out. I'll give it out again here tonight. And I get these calls, and I do everything I can to make sure that the problems are resolved. Sometimes they're little problems, but they're big problems to who has the problem. And I appreciate that. The other thing is communication with department heads and making them feel like you're part of the team. I've done that. Ironically, I checked just prior to 5 o'clock when everybody was leaving, and while Mr. Reimers has solutions for the lake, he's never spoken to our lake bed management guy, never our water resources guy. He has answers to all the issues for streamlining code enforcement. He's never talked, or community development, he's never spoken with them about any of this stuff. So I think that communication, if you're going to tell people what you're going to do, you should be able to tell them what you have done. I did see you, I'm just ignoring you.
Okay, thanks. So now we have some spontaneous inquiry coming, and Jared and I were standing up here kind of looking at these and just said, look, let's not try to have it. Yes, what's up? What's up? I can do that, yeah. Okay, so we have some questions here that are, rather than judge or decide which are better questions, I'm just going to randomly pull one out and let Jared read it. Jared, here you go. Go ahead, come over here in the light, brother. There you go.
Starting with Mr. Brown again. What steps should the county take to aid reconstruction in areas damaged by fires?
Currently, Cal Recycle they've spent up to $72 million right now. They will have spent almost $110 million in the cleanup effort. We are working right now with Cal Recycle also for another $500,000 contribution that they'll use for paving roads that aren't county maintained, but they are public access. Working with the state and with the federal government to come up with nearly $10 million to rebuild the roads that have been destroyed through the Valley Fire. I've helped get a $2 million grant from USDA and working on the other $5.5 million to accomplish the Anderson Springs sewer project. So these 115 lots that we can't give waivers to. It's not legal to do. Sounds good, but it's not possible. And the governor will not meet with you about something that will destroy the environment. So that's just not possible. That's rhetoric. And so those are the kinds of things that we need to do. We need to continue to work with our state and federal legislators in a proper manner to accomplish what we need to get the money needed to make sure that this rebuild happens in a proper way.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Reimers, what steps should the county take to aid reconstruction in areas damaged by the fire?
I have to disagree with Rob in the one sense that the county wouldn't issue a waiver for that. It's almost a common sense issue. The properties that are sitting on that creek or too close to the creek, they could put in a septic system with a Y and it can be moved over to the sewer as soon as it's installed. They're being victimized because of a lack of infrastructure. And the common sense behind this thing is the waste is going to be filtered in the same way septic tanks and leach fields filter everything, regardless of how much of it is environmentally objective. It's no more environmentally objective than the tens of thousands of animals upstream that are using that water for everything they want.
Actually, I noticed two other questions. They somewhat take the same notion and then extend it with more specificity. And two questions here dealing specifically with Hoburg. What about cleaning up Hoburgs? What are the major issues with the Hoburgs cleanup? What's going to take to get it done? So just some people that are asking specifically about the Hoburgs, former Hoburgs Resort. Can you address that, Mr. Reimers, first? Is it, I think, yeah, please, yeah.
I don't know what's going on with Hoburgs. I've heard so many different stories, I'm thoroughly confused. One of the things that confuses me is why there hasn't been cleanup there already is that these guys were renting out lodging spaces, which tells me they had to have insurance, or they should have had insurance. They probably got permitting from the city to have occupants, so there probably was insurance on there. And you've got to go after those insurance people. That thing should have been cleaned up and gone by now, and it looks worse than it did when the fire first went through there.
Mr. Brown?
This is a classic example of you got to be informed. You got to be involved. We've had dozens of meetings regarding Hoburg's cleanup, and I've never seen Mr. Reimers at any of them. He would have been able to find out that the cleanup is occurring. We issued a notice of violation. They have 30 days to show significant progress, get the contractor. We had to wait for the state of California to provide the 1,000 pages, literally 1,000 pages of documentation on exactly what kind of asbestos levels and lead and arsenic levels were in there. They're getting bids right now. The logs are being removed. The loggers have nothing to do with the cleanup of the property. And what's taken so long is the state of California indicated initially that they were going to clean it up, and it wasn't until January that they decided that they weren't going to. So the landowner up there, like him, hate him, doesn't really make any difference. Their property was victimized just like everybody else up here, and they were led to believe that it was going to be cleaned up. Then the rains came. There's no possible way for that to be cleaned up. Now we're in a position where we're doing everything we can. It looks like it could be potentially $600,000 to $1 million to clean it up, and that's where we are right now, working with them through a notice of violation so that they pay for the cleanup.
Thank you. In your opinion, what programs are needed to keep the mussels out of the lake? That'll be your question, Mr. Brown.
Basically, education. We need to make sure that people are educated on just exactly what kind of damage would occur if the quagga mussels do enter the lake. We have several programs going right now. One of them is to make sure that any boats that are coming from out of the area are clean, drained, and dry before they go in there, and they've had inspections done, and to make sure that all the boats that go in there actually have the quagga stickers on them, and if not, our Sheriff's Department has actually written several violations and tickets on that are very expensive, and that's basically what we're doing right now. And that's again, we're working with the state of California on several things, since it is a Department of Fish and Wildlife issue, and we're hoping that they contribute to that as well. And since the water that the water ends up going to Yolo County, and that we're encouraging them to become a part of that too, because whatever happens to Clear Lake happens downstream as well.
Thank you, Mr. Reimers. Same question, keeping mussels out of the lake.
Well, the inspection process is absolutely necessary. You've got to make sure the boats are clean before they get in the water, but should one sneak through and show up, they multiply very fast. The company that they say they've never talked to Lake County, and Rob said they have, so who knows, but there's a bacterial enzyme, another enzyme that's been found in soil. It's not harmful to anything except quagga and zebra mussels. It infects their digestive system. I don't know if it gives them gas or whatnot, but they die from it. And there's a way, they're looking at the ways to distribute it. One of it is the same laminar flow inversion that will be used to fix the lake, can also be used to distribute this, and should they show up in the lake. They will be controllable. Hopefully they never show up.
Thank you. Hey, after I read this next question, just to mix it up a little bit, can we have, I know there's one or two questions coming from an audience member. Have someone come up and ask a question after we do this one, just to mix it up a little bit. Okay, is that one for us? Okay, here's a question that was just generated tonight, came in. What do you expect is going to happen, and this would be Mr. Reimers first, to Lake County as a result of the new marijuana laws? And what should we do to prepare for new marijuana laws? Mr. Reimers.
Well, it's gonna have to, it's probably gonna be legal, I imagine, by November. And what the county has to do, and I think they should have been doing this earlier. It's kind of a sticky subject, but there's going to be revenue collected by the state over this, and they better get in line, because if the price gets too much, then it'll go back underground. It'll be going just the way it is, and nobody will get any money. So I've suggested on my website that one way to avoid any problems with the feds is to register the pots by the gallonage. Most growers, and I know that Terry disagreed with me, that I know of grow in pots, and if you charge them by the gallonage on the pots, 10 400-gallon pots per square mile is $3 million at 45 cents a gallon to the county.
Hey, Mr. Brown, marijuana laws.
Well, the county is already dealing with it. Making it legal does not change anything as far as the ordinances that the county has in place. Raising pigs are legal too, but you can't raise them in town. You keep them away from the schools, you keep them away from folks, and that's the way the law should. If I had my way, we wouldn't have it in here at all. I can't rationalize making something that I've seen bad for our kids. What it's done to our communities and to our kids has not been productive. It has not been good for us economically. And to all of a sudden say and legitimize it and say that it's okay because there's money to be generated from it is just fundamentally wrong, and I do not support it.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Okay, a question from the audience. And Danielle, the questions have been vetted, haven't they, as far as, okay? Someone please come up and mix things up a little bit. I have a question to ask the candidates, please. Does someone have one? Yeah, sure, please. Yeah. And we've got a few more up here to was there? Is that right? Oh, please. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Could you, I think, identify yourself too, please?
My name's Megan Berger.
Megan.
All right. The younger generation, I feel, is the future of Lake County. But what actions can we take, what can we do, or what projects can we build to keep the youth active and present in the community and keep them from becoming disenfranchised?
As I stated earlier, I have dedicated my entire adult life to that subject exactly. We've had people come before us at the board saying there's nothing for our kids to do. And I have a list, I wish I should have brought it. I have a list in the drawer that I pull out. We have 4-H, we have FFA, we have Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, we have swimming pools, we have, Middletown has a huge rodeo program down there. The list goes on and on and on. There are dozens of them. The common denominator in this is that the parents have to get involved. No, I will not, as a government official, make it easy for parents to deny their responsibility to be parents to these kids. Parents have to be involved. They can't bring them to me, let me raise them, give them back to them when they're 18 years old. There are a lot of things to do in our county, and we're very lucky to have as many things as we have in this county.
One of the things that there's not a lot of things for kids to do is work. There's not a lot of jobs in Lake County, and the median age in Lake County is going up, and it's going up because young people have to leave to go find opportunity. For the parents' sake, a lot of them don't mind if the kids leave. Some of them would like to have them stick around, and the way to create more opportunity for the youth of this county is to create more jobs, and the way to do that is transform the county.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Good. Okay, you want to take yours? Yeah.
Mr. Reamer, this will be a good question. What is the largest challenge facing the county supervisors to assist the residents and businesses going forward?
Increase the tourism, and there's only one way that's going to happen.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
The one thing about this disaster that we've experienced that we can see is there is opportunity out of it. There is going to be a lot of jobs, and I don't disagree with Mr. Reimers on the job situation and the effect that the minimum wage is going to have on that. However, I have been involved in several on-the-job training programs. There are a lot of jobs out there to be had, and there are going to be a lot more of them as a result of this disaster. We're training kids right now to actually work in that trade. I actually donated the money to build a wrestling room down at the high school, a 6,000 square foot building, and I actually brought all the kids in with contractors, and we built that in the summer. So I believe very strongly in that on-the-job training with these kids, and I've also gone to the state and to make sure that 16-year-olds can work more than 40 hours a week in the pear sheds. These are the kinds of jobs that these kids need to start out with, entry-level jobs. And so I have committed a great deal of time for that, and I believe that. Now, the other thing, going back to what the jobs are, I just had a meeting with the City of Clear Lake yesterday regarding some opportunities that they have. When the City of Clear Lake is going to be successful, we're all going to be successful. If people are successful up here, the whole county is going to be successful. We need to make sure that that success continues.
Thanks. This next question is actually my question, and Danielle wrote it out, so she vetted it for me. And I got her. Now, it's something we've been discussing in our civics economics class quite a bit. And as we all know, the governor has signed a bill recently, passed by both houses of the state legislature, to systematically raise the minimum wage up in the next 6 years with some provisions for small businesses and possibly a recession. But I'd like to throw that at, it's kind of an economic-based question. We've touched on it before in some ways, but if you thought about the raising a minimum wage and how that might affect businesses in Lake County. Mr. Reimers first?
Well, the minimum wage right now is too low. You can't be working full-time and still be living below the poverty level, and that's the situation right now at the minimum wage. So it has to be higher. It has to be done incrementally because it's going to affect the businesses. And what's ultimately going to happen, everybody here knows that, is the prices are going to go up because the margins are going to have to remain the same. But people still have to be able to live. The prices continually go up. The rate of inflation is a misnomer because they exclude food and energy. So that's the things we spend the most money on. And yeah, I believe the minimum wage needs to go up.
Mr. Brown?
I think the minimum wage is ill thought out solution to a problem that maybe could be realized in other areas. The $15 an hour minimum wage, once it gets to that, as was mentioned earlier, kids will no longer be hired. This will be heads of household will be taking these jobs, and what I've heard is businesses will then have to raise the price of a cheeseburger at McDonald's in order to pay for it. And businesses, well, they can do that. Everybody can do that, or they can fire people and they can be more automated. Government can't do that, and that's what we have to consider. Deputies will be making slightly more. Other professionals that work in government will be making slightly more than those that are working at McDonald's. We can't raise our prices. We can't raise more money in order to pay these people more money. So it's just going to have a ripple effect that's going to cause a decrease in services. We're going to have to lay people off in government in order to fund the kind of increases that need to be made in order to keep these people up above a minimum wage.
Thank you. The next question Stemming from past experiences, it seems as though Cobb has had little representation. If elected, what issues will you address for the residents of Cobb? Mr. Brown?
For 16 years, whenever anybody's called me, and I know there's a few people in here that can vouch for that. Whenever there's been an issue that Cobb needs to be dealt with, we've dealt with it. I can tell you that up until now, Cobb has been one of the less needy areas in Lake County. They have been very resilient, very self-sufficient, but there have been some issues that we needed to deal with, and we dealt with them. Now, I can honestly tell you that 90% of my efforts go to the rebuild of Cobb. And I know that, I have a huge district out there, and this may cause some heartburn to some of them, but that's the reality that I live in. There are close to 5,000 people that I wake up every morning going, how am I going to get these folks back in a home? How are we going to get these guys to come back here? What he talked about earlier with Anderson Springs, we already have that in place. We're not going to give that waiver until we know we have the funding for that sewer. There's no point in letting people put in a system that will only last for 2 or 3 years, and then we have to tell them you have to shut it down because the sewer system won't be allowed. There are steps that we have to take, and we've already taken those steps, so those waivers will be allowed.
Thank you. Mr. Reimers?
Could you repeat that question to me, please?
Was the mussels on the lake? No, it wasn't. No. Sorry.
Stemming from past experience, it seems as though Cobb has had little representation. If elected, what issues will you face for Cobb?
Well, I live in Cobb, so I'll hear from all of them. The Cobb Mountain, first of all, will never be what it was 30 years ago, and it's not going to be what it was 7 months ago. The dynamic's going to change. And in working with the community and finding out about the changes they want, there are areas, I call it Lower Summit and Upper Summit, where they used to be well-populated areas. They may only have 5 or 6 residents in there. It's hard to come up with a small community plan in there to give them a little bit of identity when there's such few residents, but things can be done.
Thank you. Okay, here, a question that came up. Okay, Lake County has the most diverse ecosystem in the world. We have more plant and animal species than anywhere, including the Amazon rainforest. Okay. All right. If you're elected, could you prioritize the protection of endangered species in Lake County? Could you talk to it first, Rob? Endangered species? Yeah.
Well, I don't know where that came from. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's not true, so I'm not going to speak to that. I do know that there are laws that require that we work to save and protect those endangered species, whether I agree with it or not. There are studies that are done in Lake County on endangered species that have never been in Lake County, so they can't even be endangered, but we still have to deal with them. And I think we have the heaviest, the state of California has the heaviest environmental regulations in the United States, and so far I haven't seen that Lake County is responsible for endangering any of those. So I don't know, what else to offer about that. But since I have some time left, I will go back and I'll say that the water consolidation is another issue that we're doing up here on Cobb that hadn't been considered until the fire. And so I pushed for that to make sure that we have a legitimate water system, and so that will save the residents of Cobb from becoming an endangered species. So I'm just trying to circle back around.
That's more than legit. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Reimers, endangered species, please. Yeah.
I assume we're doing a good job. I see a lot of species around here, and there's endangered species. Sometimes they get a little carried away. I've seen construction projects stop for some remote snake that they were probably up the street a little ways. Sometimes they get a little carried away. I don't want to see any lack of development if they run into some frog they haven't seen before, because unless you've been everywhere, you don't know if he still exists. I don't want to see any creatures disappear, but until I know where they all are, I'm not very much of an expert to talk about them.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah. I think we've run out of questions here. Yes, please. Would you like to? Please. And identify. You are?
I am Sharon Reimers.
Thank you, Sharon. Yeah. Phil's daughter. Of course. Of course.
Well, this just kind of popped into my head. Microphone. Okay. In a lot of these smaller communities that I have worked in, a lot of they're not called board of supervisors, they're more like townspeople that kind of run the counties. So my question to both of you is if the Board of Supervisor job was an unpaid position, would you still be willing to run? Thank you.
First, Ms. Reimers, unpaid position.
As Sharon knows, I was going to run before I found out they even paid for it. I thought it was a voluntary job. And, you know, I'm not doing it for the money. I love this county. I want to, you know, straighten the problems out that I see. I was here a long time ago. I saw what it was like. It can be that way again. The county needs to bring money in, and a lot of our problems will be resolved, and the only way that's going to happen is to bring tourists up here.
Mr. Brown, unpaid.
Well, as I stated earlier, I have been self-employed for 30 years, and I've been very fortunate to have that job. And as a result of that, because of the things that I mentioned earlier when Megan asked about the things for youth, Miss Lake County, 4-H, FFA, all these programs that we have for kids. In 16 years, I've never received a paycheck for this job. I've donated every nickel that I make after taxes to those worthwhile ventures that I think are very important to this community.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. I think we're about ready to wrap things up. Are there anything else we want to bring? Any burning issues or any, not burning, but just clarification issues? Yes.
Would you please announce that our other candidate was invited to this forum from time to time?
Shall I say his name? Yeah, there another gentleman who has offered to run for office, and of course his name will be on the ballot, is a Mr. John Stoddard of the Clear Lake Riviera. He was invited and declined the invitation to say anything. As I say, I'm a teacher, and sometimes I have my students say, well, you're a good teacher, Mr. Nunes, you helped me think. And I says, no, I can't make anybody think. I'm only as good as you are, and I think the same could be said about our government. We're only as good as our constituents and the input that we get. And for both of these two gentlemen who have put themselves out and wanting to serve our county and then serve it well, I think we've heard some interesting, heartfelt, conscientious, and intelligent responses here. And I hope the word goes out through our media systems and our word of mouth that we've got some pretty good candidates here. And of course, we wish them both the very best. And we know this is a peculiar election season, and I know there's sometimes too much emphasis given to national politics. Don't we think that way sometimes, Jared? But this is where our school boards, our county supervisors, our district attorneys, this is where the government perhaps impacts us even more so. So thank you so much for coming here tonight, and spread the good word. And thank you two very much. Thanks. And also, Danielle, thank you. Joe, thank you. Melissa. Something else, Danielle? Closing statements, please.
First.
2 minutes to finish. Wrap it up, please. Yeah.
All right. Thank you again for coming out. As I stated earlier, I was going to give you my phone number. I'll give it to you now. It's 349-2628. Any questions regarding this campaign, anything else in the county, or in this devastation that we've just experienced and the recovery of that, please give me a call anytime. I appreciate the support that I've had from this community over the years, and on June 7th, I would appreciate your support. If you're so inclined to support my opponent, then I look forward to your vote on June 8th. Anyway, I do enjoy to engage like this, but I think it's important for all of you to reach out anytime you have any issues or any questions of either of us as far as our candidacy, but specifically about the way things are going with the county. I've been involved in several committees. I'm on 37 different committees that I attend on a regular basis, and many of those are up here on Cobb, and working with Calpine, with Bo Moore and others in this community to try to do things that we can for all the impacts that you've experienced before the fire and mostly after the fire. So anything I can do to help, I'm here for you 24/7, and I mean that. I'm not exaggerating when I say 24/7. Anytime that somebody needs help with an issue, please give me a call.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Reimers?
I thought I'd stand up for the last one so you people can see that I do that. Rob's made some points that I'm an outsider, and I am an outsider. And what seems to be going on nationwide and all over the place right now is the people that have the best observational point of government are the people on the outside. They get wrapped up inside there, and while things may seem like they're going real well for the people on the outside, sometimes they're not often going well. I, too, was in business for a long time, and you might say that Rob's clientele was a little more captive than mine. And I learned a lot in doing that, and I was talking to the folks at Lake County Magazine the other day, and it occurred to me that I've worked with counties, 6 counties, 13 cities in 2 states. So I have a lot of experience with how counties that work really well, and also how counties that don't work really well don't work really well. The problem with Lake County, I think, is we need to move them up into the 21st century so things work a little smoother. Thanks so much for coming, and God bless you all.
Thank you all for attending again tonight. We hope that you found this forum for the District 5 Supervisor seat very informative. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and thank you all for coming.